The council chamber floated in the darkness of space like a jewel made of glass and metal. Inside, representatives from 40 different species sat in their designated seats. Some breathed oxygen like humans did. Others floated in tanks of liquid methane. A few existed as clouds of gas held together by magnetic fields. They had gathered here for 3,000 years to discuss matters of peace and trade across the galaxy. Ambassador Velrith stood at the center podium. His crystalline body reflected the light from 100 different angles, creating rainbow patterns on the curved walls. He had lived for 600 years and had seen many conflicts come and go. Today he was tired of hearing the humans complain. The Carthex Dominion has every right to defend its borders, Velrith said, his voice like wind chimes in a storm. If humanity feels threatened, perhaps they should have been more careful about expanding into contested space. The human ambassador, a woman named Maria Santos, stood in her species-designated area. She was small compared to most beings in the chamber. Her dark hair was pulled back in a simple tie, and her eyes showed the kind of exhaustion that came from weeks of failed negotiations. Ambassador Velrith, the Carthex did not simply defend their borders. They attacked 3 of our mining colonies without warning. 4,000 civilians are dead. They have declared that humanity must submit to their rule or be destroyed. Maria's voice was steady, but those who knew humans well could hear the anger underneath. We are asking the Council to intervene before this becomes a full-scale war. A rumbling laugh came from the Thendorian section. Ambassador Cross, a being that looked like a massive bear covered in blue scales, shook his head. Humanity has been part of the galactic community for only 30 years. 30 years. Some of us have been spacefaring for 10,000 years. The Carthex Dominion has one of the most powerful fleets in known space. Perhaps it would be wise for humanity to negotiate a peaceful submission rather than face total destruction. Murmurs of agreement rippled through the chamber. Many species nodded or made their equivalent gestures of approval. The humans were newcomers, after all. They had arrived in the galaxy like children stumbling into a room full of adults. Their technology was basic. Their ships were slow compared to the vessels of established powers. They had no great victories to their name, no conquered worlds, no ancient legacy. Maria looked around the chamber at all the alien faces, crystalline forms, and floating entities. She had spent 3 years on this station, trying to build relationships and trust. She had learned 40 different greeting customs. She had eaten foods that nearly killed her and had sat through religious ceremonies that lasted for days. All of it had been for nothing. So the Council refuses to help, Maria said quietly. Velrith's crystalline shoulders rose and fell in what humans had learned was his version of a shrug. The Council maintains neutrality in territorial disputes between sovereign powers. Humanity knew the risks when you expanded your colonies. The Carthex have conquered 17 species over the last 2,000 years. They are efficient, ruthless, and powerful. My advice, Ambassador Santos, is to accept their terms. Serve for a few generations. Perhaps they will grant you autonomy eventually. Serve. Maria repeated the word as if tasting something bitter. You mean become slaves? Such an ugly word, said Ambassador Iril, a floating jellyfish-like creature from the water worlds. Think of it as an apprenticeship. The Carthex will teach you proper civilization. Your species is very young, very aggressive. You fight amongst yourselves even now. Perhaps strong guidance is what humanity needs. Maria's jaw tightened. She had heard this opinion before many times. The galaxy saw humanity as violent children who had somehow stumbled onto faster-than-light travel. They looked at human history and saw nothing but war and conflict. They did not understand that humanity had also created art, music, philosophy, and had struggled toward peace for thousands of years. They only saw the violence, I see, Maria said. She began gathering her data tablets and personal items from the podium. Then humanity will handle this situation ourselves? That would be unwise, Velrith warned. The Carthex Grand Armada consists of 3,000 warships. They have conquered species far more advanced than yours. If you resist, they will not show mercy. They will burn your worlds and scatter your people across the galaxy as laborers and servants. Please, Ambassador Santos, be reasonable. Maria stopped packing and looked directly at Velrith. For a moment, the crystalline being saw something in her eyes that made him uncomfortable. It was not fear or desperation. It was something colder, something calculating. We tried peace first, Maria said. I want everyone in this chamber to remember that. Humanity came here asking for help. We offered evidence of unprovoked attacks. We requested mediation. We begged for intervention. And you all chose to do nothing. We are not choosing nothing, Velrith said, irritation creeping into his voice. We are choosing neutrality. There is a difference. Not to the people who needed help, Maria replied. She finished packing her things and walked toward the exit. Before she left, she turned back one more time. You've watched the Carthex conquer 17 species. You've seen them enslave entire populations. And every time you chose neutrality, you've become very good at watching terrible things happen and doing nothing about it. Ambassador Santos, your emotional outburst is not helpful, Iril said, his translucent body pulsing with colors that indicated disapproval. Maria smiled, but there was no humor in it. Ambassador Velrith, Ambassador Iril, members of the Council, let me share something about humanity that you might find interesting. We have a saying on Earth. Desperate times call for desperate measures. You see us as primitive and violent, and maybe you're right. But you've never seen what desperation looks like when it has a doctorate. With those words, Maria Santos left the council chamber. Within an hour, every human diplomat, trader, and civilian began withdrawing from neutral space. Ships that had been docked for years suddenly departed. Human embassies closed their doors. Trade agreements were suspended. The galaxy barely noticed. Humanity was such a small part of the cosmic economy. Their absence meant little to species that had traded with each other for millennia. 10 days later, the Carthex Grand Armada assembled at the edge of human territory. 3,000 warships, each one a masterpiece of military engineering, gathered like a swarm of metallic locusts. They had done this 17 times before, and each time the result had been the same. Total victory within weeks, sometimes days. Commander Zalth of the Carthex stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Eternal Conquest. He was 9 feet tall with 6 arms, each one capable of tearing through steel. His exoskeleton gleamed under the ship's lights, and his multiple eyes focused on the holographic display showing human space. Such a small territory, he said to his officers. This will be our fastest conquest yet. These humans have only 400 ships. We outnumber them more than 7 to 1. Should we offer terms of surrender first? Asked his second officer. Zalth's mandibles clicked together in what passed for Carthex laughter. Terms? No. We gave them terms 2 weeks ago, and they rejected them. The Council had their chance to convince the humans to be reasonable. Now we will show the galaxy what happens to species that refuse the natural order. Attack formation. We advance on their primary shipyard at Proxima Centauri. The Armada moved forward, 3,000 ships sliding through space like a blade aimed at humanity's heart. They broadcast their approach on all frequencies, wanting the humans to see their doom coming. What they did not know was that humanity was broadcasting too. Every species in the galaxy received the signal. The Galactic Council, despite their policy of neutrality, found themselves watching. They told themselves they were simply observing, documenting the conflict for historical records. But Velrith, watching from his quarters on the council station, felt something he had not experienced in 200 years. He felt afraid, though he could not explain why. Perhaps it was Maria's final words echoing in his memory. Perhaps it was the way the humans had withdrawn so quickly, so completely, like fighters backing into a corner not to hide but to prepare. The crystalline ambassador poured himself a drink of liquid silicon and settled in to watch the feeds coming from the border of human space. Around the galaxy, billions of beings did the same. The Carthex Armada crossed into human territory, and the galaxy watched to see how quickly humanity would fall. Admiral Sarah Chen stood in the command bunker beneath New Sarajevo, watching holographic displays that showed the Carthex Armada approaching like a storm cloud. She was 53 years old, with gray streaking through her black hair and scars on her hands from a ship fire 20 years ago. She had spent 35 years in Earth's Navy and had never once fired a shot in anger at another species. That was about to change. Status report, she said calmly. Commander Jackson, a young officer with nervous hands, read from his tablet. The Carthex fleet is moving toward Proxima Centauri as predicted. 3,000 ships, just like intelligence said. They are not attempting stealth. They want us to see them coming. Of course they do, Admiral Chen said. Intimidation is part of their doctrine. They have done this 17 times, and 17 times the other species surrendered before the battle even started. They think we will do the same. Will we? Jackson asked, then immediately looked embarrassed by the question. Admiral Chen turned to look at him. Commander, do you know why humanity survived long enough to reach the stars? Jackson shook his head. Because we never forgot how to fight. While other species evolved beyond warfare or found peace through abundance, we humans clawed our way up from caves and learned to compete for every scrap of food, every bit of territory, every chance at survival. We fought ice ages and plagues. We fought each other for 10,000 years, and every single conflict taught us something new about warfare. She walked to a different display, this one showing Earth's history. Images flashed past. Ancient battles with swords and shields, naval warfare with wooden ships, tanks rolling across muddy fields, aircraft carriers launching jets, orbital strikes, and finally the desperate space battles during the exodus from dying Earth. Other species look at our history and see violence, Admiral Chen continued. They see primitives who could not stop killing each other. But do you know what I see, Commander? I see innovation. I see adaptation. I see a species that turned warfare into a science. Jackson moved closer to the display. The Cartheks have been conquering for 2,000 years. They must have learned a few things too. They learned how to win against species that fight honorably, Admiral Chen said. Species that have rules for warfare. Species that value their ships and their lives so highly that they surrender rather than take heavy losses. But humanity? We learned a long time ago that sometimes you have to be willing to lose everything to win. She pulled up a new file on the display. It showed human military doctrine developed over centuries. Books written by generals and strategists from every era of human history. Sun Tzu's Art of War, Clausewitz's On War, Boyd's OODA Loop, Modern Game Theory and Decision Matrices. All of it compiled and studied by every officer in the human fleet. The Cartheks fight the same way every time, Admiral Chen explained. They mass their forces, overwhelm with numbers, and crush resistance through superior firepower. It worked on 17 species who fought predictably, but we have studied warfare in ways they cannot imagine. We have lost millions of people learning how to fight. We did not want those lessons, Commander, but we have them now. Jackson looked at the numbers on his screen. 400 human ships against 3,000 Carthex vessels. The odds were terrible. Admiral, even with better tactics, can we really win this? Admiral Chen smiled, but it was not a happy expression. Commander, let me tell you something about humanity's first major space battle. It happened during the exodus from Earth, when different factions were fighting over the last colony ships. We were desperate, running out of resources, and we had to make every ship count. Do you know what we learned? What? That there are no rules in space. No honor codes. No referee. Just physics and whoever is willing to use it most effectively. She tapped her console and new data appeared. The Carthex shields are designed to stop energy weapons. They have excellent plasma cannons and laser arrays. They expect us to fight with similar weapons because that is what civilized species do. What are we going to use? Rocks, Commander. We are going to throw rocks at them. Very fast rocks, Jackson blinked in confusion. Rocks? Admiral Chen pulled up schematics of the Proxima Centauri system. The asteroid belt glowed in red on the display. For the last 15 years, we have been hollowing out asteroids and installing mass driver systems. Hundreds of them. We have been moving them into precise positions, making them look like natural debris. Each one can accelerate chunks of iron and nickel to a significant fraction of light speed. Understanding dawned on Jackson's face. Kinetic weapons. Their shields might stop plasma, but they cannot stop solid matter moving at relativistic speeds. Exactly. And there is more. Admiral Chen zoomed in on human ship designs. Look at our vessels. What do you notice? Jackson studied the schematics. They are smaller than Carthex ships, less heavily armed, more maneuverable. We built them that way on purpose. The Carthex expect large dreadnoughts and battleships. They expect us to meet them head-on in formation. Instead, we built destroyers and frigates, fast, redundant, hard to hit. If they destroy half our fleet, the other half keeps fighting. Admiral Chen walked to a large tactical table in the center of the command bunker. A holographic representation of the Proxima system appeared above it, showing the approaching Carthex fleet as red dots and human positions as blue. We call this Protocol Thermopylae, she said, named after an ancient battle on Earth where 300 soldiers held off an army of thousands by choosing the perfect terrain. We cannot match the Carthex in numbers or firepower, so we chose the battlefield instead. She pointed to the asteroid belt. The shipyard at Proxima is real but mostly automated. It looks valuable, so the Carthex will want to capture or destroy it. They will move into the belt to surround it, because that is their standard tactic for space stations. They think the asteroids will provide them cover from our ships. Jackson saw the trap immediately, but the asteroids are the weapon. Correct. The moment they spread out through the belt, we activate the mass drivers. We turn the entire battlefield into a shooting gallery, and while they are confused and taking losses, our ships hit them from unexpected angles. We do not fight fair, Commander. We fight to win. Other officers had gathered around the table now, listening to the Admiral explain the plan. One of them, Lieutenant Park, raised her hand. Admiral, even if the ambush works, they still outnumber us. Once they recover from the initial shock, what do we do? Admiral Chen tapped another section of the display. We have been preparing for this war since the day we joined the Galactic community. While the Cartheks were conquering soft targets, we were building an asymmetric warfare doctrine. We have cyber warfare specialists who can hack their communications. We have guided missiles with AI smart enough to hunt in packs. We have ramming protocols for ships that are too damaged to fight normally. Ramming protocols? Park looked shocked. Yes. If a ship loses its weapons but still has engines, the captain can choose to ram enemy vessels at maximum velocity. One of our destroyers traveling at near light speed has the kinetic energy of a nuclear weapon. It is wasteful, it is desperate, but it works. The officers looked at each other uncomfortably. This was not the kind of warfare they had imagined when they joined the fleet. This was brutal, calculated, and utterly ruthless. Admiral Chen saw their expressions and softened her voice. I know this is hard to hear. We all joined the fleet hoping we would never have to fight. We wanted to explore, to build, to make contact with new species peacefully. But the galaxy does not care what we want. The Cartheks gave us a choice, submit or fight. And humanity has never been good at submitting. She pulled up one final image, a quote displayed in simple text. The object of war is not to die for your country, but to make the other poor bastard die for his. General Patton said that during Earth's Second World War, Admiral Chen explained, we have a lot of ugly history, a lot of painful lessons, but those lessons kept us alive long enough to reach the stars. Now we use them to stay alive out here. Commander Jackson straightened his shoulders. What are your orders, Admiral? Send the activation codes to all mass driver stations in the Proxima system. Prepare all ships for combat operations. Make sure every captain understands the mission. Survival first, victory second, and if neither is possible, make the enemy pay for every meter of space they take. Yes, ma'am. As the officers dispersed to their stations, Admiral Chen stood alone at the tactical table, watching the red dots of the Carthex fleet creep closer to human space. She had not told them everything. She had not mentioned the casualty projections or the fact that even with perfect execution, humanity would lose at least a third of its fleet. She had not told them that this battle would define humanity's place in the galaxy for generations to come. But she had told them the truth about one thing. Humanity knew how to fight. And sometimes that was enough. The galaxy was watching, waiting to see how quickly the newcomers would fall. They were about to learn that humanity had not survived 10,000 years of war by giving up easily. Admiral Chen pressed a button on her console. All ships, this is Chen. Execute Protocol Thermopylae. Show them what desperation looks like. Across human space, 400 ships moved into position, and in the Proxima asteroid belt, weapons that had been silent for 15, Commander Zolth watched the human shipyard grow larger on his displays with satisfaction. The Proxima Centauri system spread out before the Carthex Armada, like a gift waiting to be opened. The asteroid belt surrounding the shipyard was exactly where his tactical computers predicted it would be. Thousands of rocks floating in space, providing excellent cover for his ships to surround and overwhelm the target. Status of human defenses? He asked his sensor officer. Minimal, Commander. We detect only 23 human vessels in the immediate area. They are small frigates and destroyers. No capital ships. No defensive platforms. The shipyard itself has basic shields, but nothing that can withstand our bombardment. Zolth's mandibles clicked with pleasure. This was going to be easier than the conquest of the Yillith homeworld, and that had only taken 3 days. They are not even trying to defend their primary construction facility. Perhaps they hope we will spare them if they show weakness. His second officer leaned closer. Should we broadcast terms of surrender? No, we made our terms clear 2 weeks ago. If they wanted mercy, they should have accepted then. Now we make an example of them. The galaxy needs to remember what happens to species that defy the Carthex dominion. Zolth expanded the tactical display. Order the fleet to spread formation. Have groups Alpha through Kappa enter the asteroid belt from different vectors. Surround the shipyard completely. I want every escape route covered. When we attack, nothing gets out. The 3,000 ships of the Carthex Armada began to spread like a net. They moved confidently, engines glowing bright blue against the darkness of space. They had done this maneuver hundreds of times in simulations and dozens of times in actual combat. It was textbook fleet tactics, proven effective across 2,000 years of conquest. On the Council observation station, Ambassador Velrith watched the feed with growing unease. The Carthex were moving exactly as expected, spreading their overwhelming numbers to encircle the human position. But something felt wrong. Where were the rest of the human ships? Where were the defensive platforms? The minefields, the desperate last-ditch defenses that species usually deployed when facing extinction. They are not fighting back, Velrith said to his aide, a younger crystalline being named Shara. Why are they not fighting back? Shara's light patterns flickered with uncertainty. Perhaps they are evacuating, saving their people rather than fighting a battle they cannot win. Perhaps, Velrith said, but he did not believe it. He kept thinking about Ambassador Santos's final words. Desperation with a doctorate. What did that mean? In the Proxima system, the Carthex ship slipped between the asteroids. The belt was dense enough to provide cover, but not so thick that navigation was difficult. It was perfect terrain for an ambush, which was exactly why Zolth was using it. His ships could hide among the rocks while they positioned themselves to strike. All groups report ready, his tactical officer announced. We have complete encirclement. The shipyard is trapped. Excellent. Prepare to... The nearest asteroid exploded, not with fire or plasma, but with a concentrated stream of metal moving faster than anything Zolth had ever seen. The asteroid, which his sensors had marked as just another rock, suddenly revealed itself to be hollow and filled with machinery. A mass driver system, ancient technology that most species had abandoned thousands of years ago, fired a chunk of iron the size of a transport shuttle directly into the side of one of his battle cruisers. The projectile hit at a significant fraction of light speed. The ship's shields, designed to disperse energy weapons, did absolutely nothing against solid matter. The iron tore through the hull like paper, punching clean through the entire vessel and continuing into space. The battle cruiser simply came apart, metal twisting and atmosphere venting in a silent scream. Before Zolth could process what had happened, another asteroid fired. Then another. Then dozens more. The entire asteroid belt came alive with weapons. Rocks that his sensors had dismissed as natural debris revealed hidden mass drivers. Each one fired solid projectiles at velocities that turned them into relativistic weapons. The Carthex shields, so effective against plasma and lasers, were useless. The projectiles simply punched through them and through the ships beyond. Evasive action. Zolth screamed, but it was too late. His ships were spread throughout the belt exactly where the humans wanted them. They were surrounded not by cover but by weapons. The Carthex Armada, proud conquerors of 17 species, found themselves in a shooting gallery. Ships exploded left and right as chunks of metal moving at incredible speeds tore through their formations. The asteroids had been positioned over years, aimed with mathematical precision. Every shot had been calculated long before the Carthex arrived. Return fire, Zolth ordered. Destroy those asteroids. His ships began firing their plasma cannons at the asteroid weapons platforms. Rocks exploded, mass drivers were destroyed, but for every one they eliminated, 2 more opened fire. The humans had built redundancy into their trap. They had prepared for losses and planned accordingly. On his tactical display, Zolth watched in horror as 800 of his ships simply ceased to exist in the first 15 minutes. 800 vessels, each one crewed by experienced warriors, each one representing decades of construction and training. Gone, erased by rocks thrown fast enough to kill. Pull back, he ordered. All ships retreat from the asteroid belt. But the human ships, the small frigates and destroyers that had seemed so insignificant, now revealed their purpose. They had not been defending the shipyard. They had been herding the Carthex into the killing zone, and now they blocked the exit routes. They were fast, much faster than Carthex vessels, and they darted between the larger ships like insects, firing missiles and railguns at vulnerable engine sections. The Carthex fleet was larger, more powerful, but they were packed into a confined space with weapons all around them. They could not maneuver effectively. They could not bring their superior numbers to bear. Every moment they stayed in the asteroid belt, more ships died. Zolth made the hardest decision of his military career. All ships emergency jump. Immediate withdrawal. His fleet, disciplined and well-trained, began activating their faster-than-light drives. It was dangerous to jump from inside a gravity well. Dangerous to jump without proper calculations, but staying was certain death. Ships began disappearing, fleeing to rally points outside the Proxima system. When the last Carthex vessel vanished, the asteroid belt fell silent. Debris floated everywhere. The remains of hundreds of ships torn apart by kinetic weapons. The human shipyard, untouched and barely defended, continued its operations as if nothing had happened. Across the galaxy, billions of beings watched the recordings of the battle in stunned silence. The Carthex conquerors, who had never lost a major engagement, had just lost 800 ships in 15 minutes. 800 ships destroyed by rocks and math. In the council chamber, Ambassador Velrith stared at the empty space where the Carthex fleet had been. His crystalline body felt cold, though that was supposed to be impossible for his species. "What did we just watch?" Shara asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Velrith could not answer. He had seen the battle records from the Carthex's 17 previous conquests. He had seen species fight back with energy weapons, with missiles, with brave but futile defensive stands. He had never seen anything like what humanity had just done. The humans had not fought honorably. They had not met the Carthex in open battle. They had built a trap and waited patiently for years, knowing that eventually someone would threaten them. They had turned their own territory into a weapon, and had executed their plan with cold precision. Ambassador Cross, the large blue-scaled Thendorian, contacted Velrith privately. "Did you know humans were capable of this?" "No," Velrith admitted. "We thought they were primitive. Aggressive but primitive." "They are aggressive," Cross said slowly. "But they are not primitive. They think about warfare differently than we do. Did you see how they positioned those asteroids? That level of preparation suggests they have been planning for this scenario since they first entered galactic space." Velrith pulled up Earth's history files, data that the Council had collected but never seriously studied. He saw thousands of years of warfare. He saw innovation after innovation, each one born from necessity and desperation. Humans had spent their entire existence learning how to fight, and they had gotten very, very good at it. "We made a mistake," Velrith said. "We assumed that because they were new to space, they were innocent. We forgot that they came from a world where survival required constant adaptation." Shara pointed at the screens showing other regions of space. "Commander, the Carthex are regrouping. They still have over 2,000 ships. This battle was just the opening. The war is not over." Velrith nodded. "The Carthex would not surrender after one defeat, no matter how devastating. They would adapt, learn from their mistakes, and attack again. But now they knew what they were facing. Now they understood that humanity was not another soft target." In the Proxima system, Admiral Chen received the damage reports. Humanity had lost 18 ships, mostly vessels that had sacrificed themselves to block Carthex escape routes. Commander Zolth's flagship, the Eternal Conquest, floated in deep space 2 light-years from the Proxima system. Around him, the remains of his once mighty Armada gathered in scattered groups. His tactical display showed 2,147 functional ships. He had lost 853 vessels in the asteroid ambush, more than he had lost in his entire military career combined. His second officer approached cautiously. "Commander, we have analyzed the human tactics. The asteroids were modified over many years. They positioned them with extreme precision, calculating firing solutions for every possible approach vector. It was an impressive engineering achievement." "Impressive," Zolth repeated, his voice bitter. "They turned rocks into weapons and destroyed a third of my fleet." "Yes, very impressive. Also unacceptable." He turned to face his command staff. "The humans think they are clever. They think one ambush will make us retreat. They are wrong. We still outnumber them 5-1. We will crush them, but we will do it carefully." He pulled up new tactical plans. "We avoid all asteroid fields. We avoid any terrain that could hide weapons. We meet them in open space where our numbers matter. And we adapt our shields. If they want to throw rocks at us, we will learn to catch those rocks." Within hours, Carthex engineers began modifying their shield systems. They could not stop kinetic projectiles completely, but they could add magnetic fields that would deflect smaller ones and alert sensors to incoming larger ones. It would reduce their energy weapon protection, but the humans seemed to favor kinetic warfare anyway. The Carthex fleet reorganized and began advancing again, this time more slowly and cautiously. They sent scout ships ahead to check for traps. They avoided any areas where sensors detected artificial structures. They were learning. Admiral Chen watched their approach from New Sarajevo command bunker. They adapted faster than we hoped. They are avoiding the kill zones and modifying their defenses. The kinetic ambush will not work a second time. Commander Jackson studied the revised Carthex formations. They are spreading their ships across a wider area. Staying in open space, they learned their lesson about clustering in confined areas. Good, Admiral Chen said, surprising everyone in the bunker. That means Phase 2 will work better. She pulled up new orders. Launch the Berserker drones. All of them. The Berserker drones were humanity's second nasty surprise. While the Carthex had been regrouping, human ships had been deploying thousands of small autonomous weapons throughout the system. Each drone was barely larger than a fighter craft, powered by a small fusion reactor and armed with shaped nuclear charges. Most importantly, each drone had an artificial intelligence smart enough to hunt, coordinate, and learn. Other species used guided missiles, but they were simple weapons with basic tracking. The Berserker drones were different. They communicated with each other, shared targeting data, and worked together like a pack of wolves. They were cheap to produce, difficult to track, and absolutely terrifying in large numbers. The drones activated across multiple star systems simultaneously. They had been floating dormant, disguised as debris or hiding in the shadows of planets. Now they woke up and began accelerating toward the Carthex fleet. Zolth's sensor officer noticed them first. Commander, we are detecting multiple small contacts. Hundreds of them. No, thousands. They are accelerating toward our position from multiple directions. Type? Zolth demanded. Unknown. They are too small to be ships. They could be missiles, but their acceleration profiles are irregular. They are maneuvering independently. The officer's voice climbed higher. Commander, they are coordinating. They are moving in formation like a swarm. The first wave hit the outermost Carthex vessels. The drones were too small for the big ship weapons to target effectively, and they moved with unpredictable patterns that made them nearly impossible to track. They swarmed around the Carthex ships like angry insects looking for weak points in the shields and armor. When they found a vulnerable spot, they attacked. The shaped nuclear charges were small by naval standards, but they were placed with precision. Engine sections, weapon systems, sensor arrays. The drones did not try to destroy ships outright. They crippled them, leaving them dead in space for follow-up attacks. Activate point defense systems, Zolth ordered. Destroy those drones. The Carthex ships began firing rapid-fire weapons designed to stop missiles and small craft. They destroyed dozens of drones, then hundreds. But for every drone they destroyed, more appeared. The humans had deployed over 5,000 of them. And they kept coming. A Carthex battleship managed to destroy 15 drones with its defensive lasers before one slipped through and detonated against its engine core. The ship went dark, drifting helplessly. Within minutes, 3 more drones found it and finished the job. The swarm tactics were chaos incarnate. The Carthex could not predict where the drones would strike next because the drones themselves made those decisions in real time, adapting to battlefield conditions. Human programmers had given them one simple directive: disable as many enemy ships as possible while preserving your own numbers. The AI figured out the rest. While the Carthex fleet was distracted by the drone swarms, human ships struck from unexpected angles. The frigates and destroyers that had survived the first battle now operated like raiders, hitting supply vessels and damaged ships before jumping away. They did not stay to fight. They just wounded and ran, forcing the Carthex to split their attention between the drones and the human ships. Then humanity unveiled its third surprise: cyber warfare. Lieutenant Sarah Kim sat in a dark room aboard the carrier, defiant, her fingers dancing across holographic keyboards. She was part of Cyber Warfare Division, a unit that did not exist in any public records. Her job was to hack enemy systems, and she was very good at it. The Carthex used quantum-encrypted communications, supposedly impossible to crack. But humanity had been studying captured Carthex technology for years. They had found weaknesses, small vulnerabilities in the implementation if not the mathematics. It was not enough to break into the core systems, but it was enough to cause problems. "I am in their secondary communication network," Kim reported to her commander. "Injecting confusion protocols now." Across the Carthex fleet, communication systems began receiving false orders. Ships were told to change formation, to redirect to different locations to hold fire or engage targets that did not exist. The orders came through official channels with proper authentication codes. They looked real because they were real, just inserted by humans into the communication stream. Zolth found himself shouting at his officers to verify every order, to confirm everything twice. But that slowed his responses, gave the humans more time to strike. His fleet, so coordinated and efficient an hour ago, now struggled with basic commands. "We are being attacked on multiple levels," his tactical officer reported. "The drones are destroying our small craft and damaging larger vessels. Human ships are hitting our supply lines. Our communications are compromised, and we still have not seen their main fleet." Zolth realized with growing horror that the humans were not trying to win a single decisive battle. They were grinding down his forces with 1,000 cuts. Every moment he spent in human space, he lost ships to drones, to raiders, to confusion and chaos. The humans were fighting a war of attrition, and they were very good at it. "Where did they learn these tactics?" he demanded. His second officer pulled up human history files. "Commander, it appears humans have been fighting each other for their entire recorded history. They have extensive experience with asymmetric warfare, guerrilla tactics, and total war. They wrote thousands of books on military strategy. This is not new to them. This is how they always fight." Zolth watched as another of his ships went dark. Engines destroyed by drone attack. "They are using everything. Old weapons like kinetic strikes, new weapons like autonomous AI. They are attacking our logistics, our communications, our morale. This is not how civilized species conduct warfare." "No, Commander. This is how humans conduct warfare. And we taught ourselves to fight civilized species, not humans." The battle continued for 6 more hours. The Carthex destroyed thousands of berserker drones and dozens of human ships. They maintained formation and prevented a complete collapse. But they kept losing vessels, slowly and steadily, to an enemy that refused to fight fair. Finally, a Carthex cruiser that had been disabled by drones sent out a distress signal. A human destroyer, the Relentless, moved to finish it off. But the cruiser was not as helpless as it seemed. It had powered down its weapons to look dead, a trap to lure human ships close. The Relentless's captain, a veteran named Marcus Stone, saw the trap at the last moment. His ship could not turn away in time. He made a decision. "All hands, brace for impact," Stone announced calmly. "Engineering, divert all power to engines. Navigation, set collision course for that Carthex battleship at coordinate 774. The Relentless did not try to escape. Instead, it accelerated directly at the nearest Carthex battleship, a massive vessel 50 times its size. The destroyer's engines pushed it to maximum velocity, approaching a significant fraction of light speed. The Carthex battleship tried to maneuver, but it was too large, too slow. The Relentless hit it like a bullet fired from God's own rifle. The kinetic energy released in the collision was equivalent to a large nuclear weapon. Both the debris fields stretched across 3 star systems. Pieces of destroyed ships drifted in the darkness, metal twisted into shapes that no longer resembled vessels of war. The remains of the Carthex Grand Armada floated in silence, monuments to the high cost of underestimating humanity. Commander Zolth stood on the bridge of his flagship, looking at displays that told a story he never imagined he would see. Of the 3,000 ships that had entered human space 6 hours ago, only 1,847 remained functional. Over 1,100 vessels had been destroyed or disabled. The mighty Carthex Armada, undefeated in 17 conquests, had been broken by a species that had only been in space for 30 years. "Status of human forces?" Zolth asked, though he dreaded the answer. "The humans have 273 combat-capable ships remaining. They lost 127 vessels." His tactical officer paused. "Commander, at current attrition rates, they will run out of ships before we do. We still outnumber them nearly 7-1. And how many more ships will we lose before we finish them?" Zolth asked quietly. "Another 1,000? 2,000? Even if we win, what will we have left?" The question hung in the air. Victory was still possible, but it would be a victory that destroyed the Carthex fleet. And for what? To conquer a species that clearly would rather burn the galaxy than submit? Zolth had conquered 17 species. Some had fought bravely, others had surrendered quickly. But none of them had fought like the humans. None of them had turned their own territory into a weapon. None of them had been willing to ram their ships into his fleet just to take enemies with them. "Open a channel to the Galactic Council," Zolth ordered. "Request immediate mediation and ceasefire." His officers looked shocked, but no one argued. They had all seen the casualty reports. They all understood that this war could destroy both fleets. On the Council observation station, Ambassador Velrith received the Carthex request with relief. Finally, sanity was returning to the situation. He immediately opened a channel to the human fleet. "This is Ambassador Velrith of the Galactic Council, attempting to contact human command. The Carthex have requested ceasefire negotiations. Do you accept?" Silence. The human ships continued their operations. Drones kept hunting through the Carthex fleet and raiders kept hitting supply vessels. "Human command, please respond. The Carthex are willing to negotiate. The Council can mediate a peaceful resolution. Please acknowledge." More silence. Then finally a response. Admiral Sarah Chen's face appeared on the display, and Velrith saw immediately that she was exhausted. Her uniform was stained, her hair was disheveled, and her eyes held the hollow look of someone who had been making life and death decisions for hours. "Ambassador Velrith," Chen said, her voice flat. "I remember you. You were very clear about the Council's neutrality when we asked for help. You told us to accept Carthex terms. You told us to submit and perhaps we would earn our freedom in a few generations. Admiral Chen, the situation has changed. The Carthex are willing to negotiate now. We can find a peaceful solution." "Where was the peaceful solution when they destroyed our colonies?" Chen asked, her voice rising slightly. "Where was the Council when they killed 4,000 civilians? You want us to stop now after we have proven we can fight?" "No, Ambassador. We tried peace first. You told us we were on our own, so we handled it ourselves." Velrith felt his crystalline structure pulse with frustration. "Admiral, I understand your anger, but continuing this battle serves no purpose. Both sides have taken heavy casualties, and this before more people die." Chen leaned forward and her expression was cold. "I will end this when the Carthex understand that attacking humanity was the worst mistake they ever made. I will end this when every species in the galaxy sees what happens to empires that think they can enslave us. This is not just about revenge, Ambassador. This is about making sure no one ever threatens humanity again." Before Velrith could respond, Chen cut the connection. The human fleet did not stop attacking. If anything, they intensified their operations as if determined to prove a point. In the command bunker on New Sarajevo, Admiral Chen turned to her staff. "How much longer can we maintain operations?" Commander Jackson pulled up resource reports. "Our drone reserves are 60% depleted. Ammunition for railguns is at 40%. We can continue combat operations for approximately 4 more hours before we have to withdraw and resupply." "And the Carthex? Their supply situation is worse. They came expecting a short campaign. They do not have the logistics for extended operations this deep in our space. If we can keep the pressure on for another few hours, they will be forced to retreat regardless of their remaining ship numbers." Admiral Chen nodded slowly. "Then we continue. No ceasefire, no negotiations, not until they are running for their lives. It was ruthless, but it was necessary. The galaxy needed to see that humanity was not a soft target. They needed to understand that attacking humans came with a price that made victory meaningless." The battle continued. Human drones swarmed through the Carthex fleet like locusts, and each one that died took a piece of a Carthex ship with it. Human cyber warfare teams kept inserting chaos into enemy communications. Human raiders kept destroying supply vessels and ammunition carriers. Then Commander Zolth made a final desperate gamble. He ordered his entire remaining fleet to concentrate on the human carrier Defiant, Admiral Chen's flagship. If he could destroy the human command ship, perhaps their coordination would collapse. Nearly 2,000 Carthex ships turned toward the Defiant, weapons charging. It was a massive display of force, the kind that had made 17 species surrender. Admiral Chen watched them come. "Jackson, how many Berserker drones do we have left?" "About 1,500, Admiral. All of them. Send every single drone to protect this ship, and get me a direct line to every human captain in the fleet." Within seconds, she was broadcasting to all remaining human vessels. 273 ships, each one battered and damaged. Each one crewed by people who were exhausted and scared but still fighting. "This is Admiral Chen. The Carthex are making one final push to destroy our command ship. They think if they kill me, you will fall apart. They do not understand humanity at all. She paused, choosing her words carefully. We have been fighting for 6 hours. We have lost friends, colleagues, people we trained with and served beside. But we have also proven something the galaxy needs to see. We have proven that humanity cannot be conquered, cannot be enslaved, cannot be intimidated. She looked directly at the camera, speaking to the 273 ships, and to the billions of beings watching across the galaxy. If they destroy this ship, if they kill me, I need every one of you to keep fighting. Not because I order it, but because that is what humans do. We survive, we adapt, we fight until we win, or until there is nothing left to fight with. Make them pay for every meter of space. Make them regret the day they ever heard the word human. The human fleet responded with actions, not words. Every ship moved to intercept the Carthex assault. The 1,500 remaining Berserker drones formed a wall of metal and explosives around the Defiant. And humanity prepared to either win or die trying. The two fleets collided in a final, desperate battle. Explosions lit up space like a constellation of dying stars. Ships fired everything they had. Point-blank range, no tactics left except raw violence. The Berserker drones died by the hundreds but took Carthex vessels with them. Human ships rammed enemy battleships when they ran out of ammunition. It was chaos. It was brutal. And it was exactly the kind of fight humanity knew how to win. Commander Zolth watched his flagship's shields fail under concentrated fire from 3 human destroyers. He felt the ship shudder as railgun rounds punched through the hull. In his final moments, he understood what humanity had been trying to tell the galaxy. Some species fight for honor. Some fight for territory. But humans fight for survival with a ferocity that makes victory Pyrrhic at best. The Eternal Conquest exploded, taking its commander and crew with it. With their flagship destroyed and over 1,500 ships lost, the Carthex fleet finally broke. The remaining vessels activated their FTL drives and fled human space, abandoning their damaged ships and fleeing for their lives. Admiral Chen watched them go, feeling no sense of triumph. The Defiant had survived, but 73 more human ships had been destroyed in the final battle. She had started with 400 ships. She now had 200 remaining. Order all ships to cease fire, she said quietly. Begin rescue operations for survivors, both human and Carthex. Jackson looked at her in surprise. We are rescuing Carthex? We are. They are defeated. They are no longer a threat, and we do not kill helpless enemies. That is one of the things that separates us from them. Across the galaxy, the recordings of the battle spread like wildfire. Every species, every civilization, watched the same 6 hours of footage. They saw the asteroid ambush. They saw the drone swarms. They saw the cyber warfare and the guerrilla tactics. They saw Captain Stone's ramming attack. They saw humanity fight with every weapon, and the Battle of Nexus Prime would be remembered as the day the galaxy learned what humans really were. Fleet Admiral Li Subin stood on the bridge of the Busan's Defiance, watching the largest space battle in galactic history unfold before her. Ships from 50 different species fought together against the Dravek swarm, all of them following tactics that humans had taught them. Enemy reinforcements jumping in from Sector 7, reported her tactical officer. Looks like 300 swarm vessels, maybe more. Li Subin nodded calmly. A year ago, news like that would have meant certain defeat. The swarm had never retreated, never been stopped, never been anything but a force of pure destruction. But that was before they met humanity. Signal all ships, she ordered. Execute Pattern Chaos 7. Across the battlefield, human and alien vessels scattered like leaves in the wind. To anyone watching, it looked like complete disorder. Ships flew in every direction with no apparent plan. Some headed straight for the enemy. Others seemed to flee toward empty space. The swarm creatures, each one the size of a city, moved to intercept what they thought was a panicked retreat. Their collective intelligence had learned to read galactic military tactics over centuries of conquest. They knew how civilized species fought. They didn't know how humans fought. Now, Li Subin whispered. The scattered ships suddenly weren't scattered anymore. They were exactly where they needed to be. The fleeing vessels had positioned themselves behind swarm reinforcements. The charging ships had drawn the main enemy force into a trap. In seconds, the disordered retreat became a perfectly coordinated ambush. Beautiful, said her communications officer, who happened to be a Velthari. 6 months ago, his people had called humans too chaotic to be trusted. Now he watched human tactics with something like wonder. The battle raged for 3 days around Nexus Prime, the crystal world where humanity had been condemned 10 years before. The great amphitheater where aliens had voted for human exile now stood in the shadow of burning starships. Colonel Oh Seung-ho led his strike teams deep into swarm-controlled space, hitting the creatures' nursery ships with surgical precision. These were the vessels where new swarm creatures were born from consumed matter. Destroy them and the swarm couldn't replace its losses. Remember, he told his teams over the radio, we're not trying to win a fair fight. We're trying to win, period. The strike teams used every dirty trick humans had ever invented. They hid inside asteroid fields until swarm patrols passed, then struck without warning. They used enemy signals to confuse swarm communications. They even rammed damaged ships into critical targets when conventional weapons failed. It was warfare without honor, glory, or rules. It was human warfare. Commander Jang Min-jung developed new flying patterns that confused the swarm's collective intelligence. Her pilots flew in formations that looked random, but contained hidden mathematics. The swarm creatures tried to learn and adapt, but there was nothing to learn. How does this work? Asked a Korthak pilot after flying one of Jang's patterns. It doesn't, she replied. That's why it works. The aliens were starting to understand something important about humanity. These weren't the chaotic warriors the galaxy had feared. They were problem solvers who had learned to use chaos as a tool. But humanity's greatest contribution to the war wasn't military. It was teaching the galaxy how to work together. Diplomat Kim Yoo-jin had the hardest job of anyone in the fleet. She had to keep dozens of species united when their natural instinct was to blame each other for every setback. The Zilani are hoarding medical supplies, complained a Velthari commander. The Velthari won't share intelligence about swarm movements, accused a Korthak admiral. The Korthak refused to coordinate their attacks with our schedule, said a Zilani captain. Kim listened to it all with endless patience. She had learned something during humanity's exile that the aliens were just discovering now. Survival required cooperation, even with people you didn't like. You're all right, she told them during one heated meeting. Every species here has good reasons not to trust the others. You've been enemies for thousands of years, but the swarm doesn't care about your history. It just wants to eat you all. She pulled up a map of the galaxy showing the worlds the swarm had consumed. Look at this. The swarm doesn't care if you're Velthari or Korthak or Zilani. Dead worlds all look the same to them. You can spend time fighting each other, or you can spend time fighting the real enemy. Your choice. Slowly, painfully, the galaxy began to learn cooperation. Species shared resources they had hoarded for centuries. Old enemies worked side by side on joint projects. Military forces that had never trusted each other started operating as a single unit. The humans made it work by showing them how. Human engineers taught alien technicians how to repair each other's equipment. Human doctors treated anyone who was hurt regardless of species. Human soldiers fought alongside beings who had voted for their exile. I don't understand your people, Admiral Thelvara said to Kim during a brief break in the fighting. What don't you understand? We condemned you. We cast you out of the galaxy. We made sure you suffered for 10 years. And now you're here, dying to protect us. Why? Kim was quiet for a moment, thinking of Earth in the dark years after exile. The shortages, the fear, the feeling of being abandoned by the universe because that's not who we are, she said finally. You judged us by your own standards. You thought we would be as petty and vindictive as you were. You were wrong. The breakthrough came when Dr. Kang Yunsu activated the experimental weapons that humans had built during their exile. 10 years of forced innovation had created technology that existed nowhere else in the galaxy. The weapons didn't work through brute force. They worked by understanding patterns the galaxy had never noticed. While alien scientists had focused on building bigger guns, humans had focused on understanding their enemy. Activating disruption field, Dr. Kang reported from her lab aboard the Soul's Pride. The effect was immediate and devastating. Swarm creatures across the battlefield suddenly stopped coordinating. Their collective intelligence, which had made them unstoppable, shattered like glass. How did you do that? Asked a Velthari scientist who was monitoring the battle. We studied them, Dr. Kang replied. While you were building stronger weapons, we were learning how they think. You can't kill an idea with a bigger gun, but you can break it with a better idea. The isolated swarm creatures cut off from their collective mind became confused and vulnerable. Ships that had been invincible suddenly couldn't adapt to changing tactics. Creatures that had consumed worlds started making simple mistakes. The tide of battle turned in hours. As swarm reinforcements broke apart and fled toward deep space, President Han So-young arrived at Nexus Prime aboard the Yao, diplomatic vessel Soul's Hope. She had come to address the Galactic Council, in the same chamber where humanity had been condemned. The great amphitheater was different now. Alien representatives who had once sat in judgment of humanity now looked to her for leadership. The beings who had voted so confidently for human exile now understood what they had almost lost. "President Han," said the Velthari representative, "we owe you an apology. We were wrong about your species, terribly wrong." Han looked around the chamber where her people had been condemned. The crystal wall still bore scorch marks from the battle that had raged outside. "You were wrong," she agreed, "but not in the way you think." The aliens looked confused. "You thought we were dangerous because we fought when threatened. You thought we were chaotic because we didn't follow your rules. You thought we were unworthy because we were different." She paused, letting her words sink in. "You weren't wrong about what we are. You were wrong about what those things mean. Our willingness to fight made us your defenders. Our chaos made us unpredictable enough to defeat an enemy you couldn't understand. Our difference made us strong enough to save you all." The vote to readmit humanity to the galactic community was unanimous. 847 species voted to welcome back the people they had cast out. But President Han's response surprised everyone. "We'll consider your offer," she said, "but not as supplicants grateful for your acceptance. If we rejoin the galaxy, it will be as equals who have earned our place through our actions, not through your approval." The galaxy had turned its back on humanity. Now humanity was deciding whether to forgive them for it. And in that moment, the aliens finally understood what they had really lost 10 years ago. Not a dangerous enemy, but the one force that could have saved them all along. The Inchin Rising dropped out of hyperspace like a ghost returning from the dead. Captain Nam Kiwu studied the screens showing the Velthari system, and what he saw made his stomach turn. 3 of the 5 Velthari worlds were gone. Not destroyed, consumed. Where green planets had once orbited their star, only empty space remained. The Dravik swarm had eaten everything, down to the last grain of sand. The remaining 2 worlds were under siege. Massive creatures the size of battleships swarmed around them like hungry insects. Each creature pulsed with a sickly light as it fed on the planets below. "Captain," said his communications officer, "I'm getting signals from other ships." Behind the Inchin Rising, more human vessels appeared. The Soul's Hammer, built in the shipyards of Mars. The Busan's Pride, assembled from asteroid metal in the belt. Dozens of ships that had been hidden for 10 years, waiting for this moment. They weren't pretty ships. No smooth alien curves or exotic materials. These were human ships, tough, practical, built to work in the worst conditions. Mining vessels turned into carriers, cargo haulers equipped with experimental weapons. Even luxury liners converted to hospital ships. "Open a channel to the Velthari," Captain Nam ordered. The face that appeared on his screen made him pause. Admiral Thelvara had been one of the aliens who testified against humanity at their trial. Her 6 arms had gestured dramatically as she called humans dangerous. Her black mirror eyes had shown nothing but contempt. Now those same eyes showed only desperate hope. "Humans?" she whispered. "But you were exiled. Why are you here?" Captain Nam kept his voice steady. "Because it's the right thing to do. Send us your defensive positions. We're moving to intercept the swarm." What followed was humanity's first real battle against an alien enemy that wasn't interested in talking. "Commander," Park Hyun-woo led the first wave of human fighters toward a cluster of swarm creatures, approaching Velthari Prime. His pilots flew ships held, together with determination and spare parts, facing monsters that had devoured 100 worlds. "Remember your training," he told his squadron over the radio. "These things are big, but they're not smart like us. They react to patterns, so don't give them patterns to learn." The battle was unlike anything humans had ever experienced. The swarm creatures moved like living ships, their bodies changing shape to avoid weapons fire. They fired beams of energy that could cut through metal like paper. But they had never fought humans before. Where alien fleets had attacked in neat formations, humans swarmed like angry bees. Where other species used overwhelming firepower, humans used tricks and traps. When traditional tactics failed, humans made up new ones on the spot. "Gold Leader, this is Gold 3, came a voice over the radio. I can't get a clear shot at that big one. Then don't take a clear shot, Park replied. Use the asteroid field. Make it chase you into the rocks. The human pilot led the swarm creature on a wild chase through floating chunks of metal and ice. The creature, focused on its prey, didn't notice the trap until too late. The asteroid field channeled it into a narrow space where the other human fighters waited. The creature died in a burst of light. Its ancient hunger finally ended. News of the human victory spread across the galaxy faster than light-speed communications. Species that had voted for humanity's exile watched in stunned silence as human ships threw themselves into battle after battle. Dr. Song Hye-jin worked in the medical bay of the Soul's Pride, treating wounded Velthari soldiers alongside injured human marines. The aliens stared at her with their mirror eyes, unable to understand why she would save beings who had condemned her species. "Why do you help us?" asked a wounded Velthari warrior. Dr. Song looked up from her work. "Because you're hurt and I'm a doctor. That's all the reason I need." The war changed both humans and aliens. The galaxy began to see that these exiled humans fought differently than anyone else. They didn't seek glory or conquest. They sought solutions. Engineering Chief Ryu Dong-min turned Cargo Bay 3 into a weapons factory, building new tools to fight the swarm between battles. His team worked around the clock, modifying mining lasers into ship killers, turning construction equipment into weapons of war. "We need more firepower," reported Captain Nam after a particularly hard battle. "The swarm adapts too fast to our weapons." "Then we'll build weapons that adapt faster," Ryu replied. It wasn't just the weapons that changed. The humans changed the way the galaxy fought. Species that had been enemies for thousands of years found themselves working together under human coordination. Diplomat Kim Yoo-jin spent her days mediating between alien groups that wanted to kill each other almost as much as they wanted to stop the swarm. The Korthak blamed the Velthari for not warning them about the swarm. The Velthari accused the Zilani of abandoning their colonies. Old hatred threatened to tear apart the alliance before it could really begin. "You can fight each other after we stop the swarm," Kim told them during one heated argument. "Right now you need each other to survive." Slowly, painfully, the galaxy began to work together. Human tactics spread to alien fleets. Species that had never spoken to each other started sharing information. The rigid military doctrine that had failed against the swarm gave way to human flexibility. 6 months after the first human intervention, the war's character began to change. The swarm, which had consumed worlds without resistance, started meeting real opposition. Fleet Admiral Choi Min-seok coordinated the largest combined fleet in galactic history, from his flagship, the Busan's Defiance. Ships from dozens of species flew in formation, their different designs and technologies working together under human tactical planning. "The key is not to fight them the way they expect," he told his alien commanders during a strategy meeting. "They learn from patterns, so we don't give them patterns, we give them chaos." The aliens had trouble understanding human tactics at first. Where they saw disorder, humans saw opportunity. Where they saw defeat, humans saw problems to solve. "This makes no sense," complained a Korthak admiral. "Your ships are attacking from 17 different directions at once. There's no coordination." "That is the coordination," Choi replied. "The swarm can't adapt to what it can't predict." The battle for the Nexus system proved him right. The same crystal worlds where humanity had been condemned became the site of the galaxy's greatest victory against the swarm. Human ships darted between alien vessels like dancers in a deadly ballet. They struck where the swarm least expected, vanished when the creatures tried to respond, and appeared somewhere else entirely to strike again. The galaxy watched in amazement as the unstoppable swarm began to stumble. These creatures that had devoured worlds were confused by human unpredictability. They couldn't learn patterns that didn't exist. As the battle ended with swarm creatures retreating for the first time in galactic memory, Admiral Thelvara approached Captain Nam on the command deck of his ship. "I don't understand," she said. "We cast you out. We called you dangerous. We turned our backs on you completely. Why did you come back to help us?" Nam looked out at the stars through the ship's windows. Somewhere out there, human ships were helping to rebuild worlds the swarm had damaged. Human doctors were treating alien wounded. Human engineers were sharing their hard-won knowledge with beings who had once scorned them. "You're right," he said finally. "You did turn your backs on us, but we're not you." The simple words carried a weight that made the alien admiral step back. In them, she heard everything the galaxy had missed about humanity. Their refusal to abandon others, even when others abandoned them. Their determination to help, even when help wasn't deserved. The galaxy had cast out humanity because they feared what humans might become. Now they were seeing what humans had chosen to become instead. And for the first time in 10 years, the aliens began to understand what they had really lost when they voted for exile. The first reports came in broken pieces, scattered across the alien communication networks like whispers of a nightmare. Admiral Cho Jae-sung sat in the command center of Titan Base, reading the intercepted messages that his team had decoded. The words made his blood run cold. "Sir," said Colonel Bae Young-mi, her voice tight with worry. "Another transmission just came in. The Velthari outer colonies. They're gone." Cho looked up from his screen. "Gone? What do you mean gone?" "Consumed, sir. 3 billion people. The entire population of their border worlds. Something called the Dravik Swarm hit them 4 days ago. There's nothing left but empty space." Cho had heard stories about the Dravik Swarm in the old alien databases. Ancient creatures that lived in the dark between galaxies. They came like locusts, eating everything in their path, turning matter into more of themselves. Most aliens thought they were just legends. The legends were wrong. More reports flooded in hour by hour. The Korthak homeworld under attack. Entire star systems going dark. Fleets of alien warships being destroyed so fast that their distress calls cut off in mid-sentence. "How many worlds have fallen?" Cho asked. Young Mai checked her computer. 17 confirmed. "Maybe twice that many we can't reach anymore. And sir, they're heading inward. Toward the galactic core. Toward Earth." On the other side of human space, Director Lim Junsu watched the same reports from Global Defense Command on Earth. His computers tracked the swarm's movement, calculating speed and direction. The numbers were terrifying. "Show me the projection," he told his team. The main screen lit up with a map of the galaxy. Red dots marked where the swarm had struck. A yellow line showed their path, straight toward the center where most civilized worlds lived. "At their current rate," said his assistant Dr. Kim, "they'll reach the galactic core in 15 years. After that they come for us," Lim finished. The galaxy that had exiled humanity was tearing itself apart in panic. The same aliens who had voted so confidently to cast out the humans now sent desperate messages begging for help from anyone who would listen. The Galactic Council, which had seemed so powerful and united during humanity's trial, cracked under pressure. Old enemies blamed each other for not seeing the threat coming. Allies abandoned each other to save their own worlds. "The Velthari are requesting emergency aid," Young-mi reported to Admiral Cho. "They're offering trade agreements, technology sharing, even territory if someone will help them." Cho almost laughed. The same aliens who had called humans dangerous were now offering bribes for help. The same beings who had voted to exile humanity were learning what real danger looked like. But the laughter died in his throat. This wasn't just about the aliens anymore. The swarm wouldn't stop at alien worlds. When they finished eating the galaxy, they would come for Earth too. On Earth, President Han So-young called an emergency meeting of the Human Assembly. Representatives from every colony, every station, every ship gathered in the Great Hall via video link. The debate that followed would decide humanity's fate. "They cast us out," said the representative from Mars colony. "Why should we help them now?" "Because they're still people," replied the delegate from Europa Station. "Different from us, but still thinking, feeling beings. We can't just watch them die." "They watched us suffer for 10 years, said another voice. "They made sure we couldn't trade, couldn't expand, couldn't even leave our own star system. Now they want our help." Admiral Cho spoke from Titan Base. "The swarm won't stop with alien worlds. Once they consume the galaxy, they'll come for us. This isn't about helping the aliens. It's about survival." The argument went on for hours. Some humans wanted revenge, to let the galaxy burn for what it had done to them. Others believed that helping was the right thing to do regardless of the past. In the end, it was President Han who settled the matter. 10 years ago, they judged us," she said. "They decided we were too dangerous, too violent, too different to share the galaxy with them. Today, we get to show them who we really are." She paused, looking at the faces on the screens around her. "We could stay hidden here in our corner of space. We could wait and hope the swarm destroys itself on alien worlds before it reaches us. We could let billions die while we do nothing." Another pause. "But that's not who we are. That's not who humans are. We don't abandon people who need help, even if those people once abandoned us. We're better than that. We have to be better than that. The vote was close, but it passed. Humanity would intervene. The decision meant revealing secrets that humans had kept hidden for 10 years. Ships built in secret shipyards. Weapons developed in underground labs. Technology born from years of forced innovation. Admiral Cho received his orders the next day. Take the fleet to Velthari space. Engage the swarm. Show the galaxy what humans can do. As his ships prepared to leave human space for the first time in a decade, Cho thought about the irony. Humanity's first act after being freed from exile would be to save the aliens who had exiled them. The swarm was vast and terrible, consuming worlds like a hungry animal. But they had never faced humans before. They had never met a species that saw impossible odds as just another problem to solve. The galaxy had 10 years to regret casting out humanity. Now they would see what those 10 years had created. They would learn what humans became when they had nothing left to lose except their principles. The fleet jumped to hyperspace, carrying humanity back to the galaxy that had rejected them. This time, they came not as supplicants asking for acceptance, but as saviors offering salvation. Whether the galaxy deserved saving or not, humans would find out. But they would try, because that's what humans did. They helped even when it hurt. They saved others even when others wouldn't save them. The swarm had consumed 100 worlds. Soon they would learn what happened when they tried to consume one that fought back with everything humans had learned in their exile. The galaxy was about to discover what they had really cast out 10 years ago, not a threat to be contained, but the one force that might save them all. 5 years had passed since the ships came home from Nexus Prime. 5 long years of silence from the stars. Commander Lee Min-ho floated in his spacesuit outside Mining Station 7, watching his crew work on the broken harvester. The machine was old, built back when humans could trade with aliens for the good metal parts. Now they had to make do with whatever they could find in the asteroid belt. "Hand me that wrench, Jinsu," he said into his radio. "Which one, Commander?" came the reply. "The one held together with tape or the one missing half its teeth?" Lee Min-ho almost smiled. His crew still had their sense of humor even after all this time. They needed it. Everything was breaking down, and they had no way to get new parts. Back on Earth, things were getting harder every day. The planet held 12 billion people, and they all needed food, air, and power. Before the exile, Earth had imported food from dozens of farm worlds. Rare metals came from alien mining operations. Even simple things like medical supplies had come from other planets. Now there was only what humans could make themselves. On Europa Station, Chief Engineer Kim Da-hee worked 18 hours every day trying to keep the ice miners running. The station dug water ice from Jupiter's moon and sent it to Earth. Without that water, billions would die. But the machines were dying too. Every week brought new problems. Fusion reactors that had run for decades started to fail. Computer systems crashed and couldn't be fixed without alien-made chips. Even the lights dimmed as power became scarce. "We're losing Reactor 3, reported Engineer Park from the control room. "The magnetic containment is failing again." Kim Da-hee rubbed her tired eyes. "Can we patch it?" "For maybe a week. But we need new coils and we don't have the materials to make them." It was the same story everywhere. Mars Colony had cut its population in half to save resources. The research station at Proxima Centauri had gone dark completely. They just didn't have enough ships to supply it anymore. But something strange was happening in the silence. Something the aliens who voted for exile had not expected. In the underground labs beneath Luna City, Dr. Yoon Tai-ho led a team of the smartest humans alive. They worked in secret, away from the watching eyes of alien spy drones that patrolled the edge of human space. "Show me the new power cell design," Dr. Yoon said to his assistant, Song. Song pulled up the plans on a simple computer screen. No fancy alien technology here, just human engineering pushed to its limits. "It's crude compared to what we used to import," Song admitted. "But it works, and we can build it with materials we already have." Dr. Yoon nodded. It wasn't pretty, but it would power a mining laser for twice as long as the old alien-made cells. They were learning to do more with less. Learning to build things that worked without exotic materials from across the galaxy. Across human space, the same thing was happening. Cut off from alien trade, humans had to become creative. They found new ways to grow food in small spaces. They built machines that could fix themselves. They even learned to make their own medicine from earth plants. The aliens had wanted to weaken humanity by cutting them off. Instead, they were making humans stronger. President Han So-young stood in the United Earth Government building, looking out at the city below. The lights were dimmer than they used to be, but they were still on. People still walked the streets. Children still played in the parks. "Ma'am," said her aide, "the monthly resource report is ready." President Han took the tablet and read the numbers. Food production was up 3%. Water recycling was more efficient than ever. Even population growth had slowed as families chose to have fewer children in the difficult times. "We're surviving," she said quietly. "Yes, ma'am, but for how long?" President Han looked up at the stars through her office window. Somewhere out there, alien ships made sure no human vessel could leave the Sol system. The galaxy had moved on without them, probably thinking the human problem was solved. They were wrong. "Send a message to all colony leaders," she said. "Tell them to prepare for Phase 2. Phase 2 was the plan they had worked on in secret for 5 years. Not just survival, growth. Not just making do with what they had, making it better. In hidden shipyards behind the moon, workers built new vessels. They weren't as fast or pretty as alien ships, but they were tough. Built by humans for humans to do human work. The materials came from asteroids that humans mined themselves. The power came from fusion reactors that humans designed. Even the computers ran on code that humans wrote. The galaxy thought cutting us off would kill us, President Han said to her aide. They forgot that humans have been cut off before. We've always found a way. She thought about Earth's history. Humans stranded on islands had learned to build boats. Humans trapped in deserts had learned to find water. Humans facing ice ages had learned to make fire. Being alone in space was just another challenge. And humans were very good at solving challenges. On Mining Station 7, Commander Lee Min-ho watched his crew finish fixing the harvester. It wouldn't win any beauty contests, but it worked. It would dig more metal from the asteroids to feed Earth's growing factories. "Good work, everyone," he said over the radio. "Let's get her back online." The machine hummed to life, its crude but effective system starting their endless work. Around the station, dozens of other machines did the same. All of them built by human hands, powered by human innovation, guided by human determination. The aliens had 5 years to forget about humanity, 5 years to get comfortable with their decision, 5 years to believe the threat was gone. Those 5 years were almost over. In the darkness between stars, humanity had learned something important. They didn't need the galaxy's permission to exist. They didn't need alien approval to grow. They didn't need anyone's help to become what they were meant to be. The galaxy had turned its back on them. Soon it would turn around again, and when it did, it would find that humanity had not faded away in the darkness. Instead, they had learned to make their own light. The Great Hall on Nexus Prime stretched as far as the eye could see. Hundreds of alien beings filled the crystal seats that rose in circles around the center floor. Some had wings that glowed with soft light. Others looked like walking trees with silver bark. A few were so strange that humans had no words to describe them. Admiral Kang-woo stood in the middle of it all. His dark blue uniform was pressed and clean, but his face showed the weight of what was happening. Around him, the voices of 800 different species mixed into a sound like rushing water. The trial had been going on for 3 days. 3 days of listening to aliens tell the galaxy why humans were dangerous. 3 days of watching beings who had never set foot on Earth decide the fate of 12 billion people. "The humans expand too fast," said the Velthari ambassador. She was tall and thin with 6 arms and eyes like black mirrors. "They take worlds that do not belong to them. They build cities where none should exist." Murmurs of agreement echoed through the hall. Kang-woo kept his face calm, but inside his heart was heavy. He remembered the first human colony on New Eden. Families from Earth had worked for years to turn that dead rock into a green world. They had followed every rule, filed every paper, asked permission for everything. But the Velthari wanted that world too. Dr. Park Soo-jin stepped forward. She was small next to the alien giants around her, but her voice was strong. "We came in peace," she said. "Humans have shared their medicine with your sick. We have taught you how to grow food on dead worlds. We have given freely of our knowledge." The Korthak delegate made a sound like grinding metal. He was huge and covered in what looked like gray stone. "Humans are warriors," he said. "They fight when others seek peace. They carry weapons where none are needed. Kang Wu wanted to laugh, but it would have been bitter. Yes, humans carried weapons. They had learned long ago that the galaxy was not always safe. Pirates attacked trade ships. Some species saw humans as weak because they were new. A few alien groups thought human worlds would be easy to take. We defend ourselves, Dr. Park said. Nothing more. When the Zilani attacked our colony on Far Haven, we fought back. When pirates raided our trade routes, we stopped them. Is it wrong to protect our families? But the aliens were not listening anymore. Their minds were made up. Kang Wu could see it in their faces, their postures, the way they looked at the humans like something dirty. The vote came fast. A wall of light showed the results as each species cast their choice. Red meant exile. Blue meant freedom. Red, red, red. The lights kept coming, an endless stream of red that filled the wall. 846 species voted to cast humanity out of the galaxy. Only one voted blue, the humans themselves. The hall erupted in celebration. Aliens clicked, whistled, and sang in joy. They had removed the threat. They had cleaned the galaxy of the human problem. Kang Wu stood slowly. The noise died down as the aliens waited to hear what the defeated human would say. We came to you with open hands, he said. His voice carried to every corner of the great hall. We offered friendship, knowledge, and help. You have chosen to see us as enemies instead. He paused and looked around the hall. His eyes met those of beings who had once called themselves friends of humanity. You celebrate today because you think you have won, but you have not won anything. You have only shown who you really are. History will remember this day, and it will not remember you kindly. The aliens fell silent. Some looked uncomfortable, others angry. A few seemed almost sad. Kang Wu turned and walked toward the exit. Dr. Park and the rest of the human team followed him. Their footsteps echoed in the suddenly quiet hall. Outside, their ship waited. The Soul's Pride was old but reliable, built in the shipyards above Earth 20 years ago. It would carry them home for what might be the last time. As they lifted off from Nexus Prime, Kang Wu looked back at the crystal city shrinking below. Somewhere in that city, the aliens were already planning how to divide up human trade routes and colonies. They would split the wealth that humans had created and feel good about it. Sir, said Captain Lee, the ship's pilot, what do we tell Earth? Kang Wu was quiet for a long time. Through the ship's windows, he could see other alien vessels. Some were already heading toward human space, ready to enforce the exile. Others would spread the news across the galaxy. The humans were finished. We tell them the truth, he finally said. We tell them that we are alone now, cut off from everything we built out here. But we also tell them something else. What's that, sir? Kang Wu smiled, but it was not a happy smile. It was the smile of a man who had just learned what his enemies were really like. We tell them that being alone is not the same as being weak. We tell them that humans have survived worse things than this, and we tell them that someday, somehow, we will prove every one of those aliens wrong. The Soul's Pride jumped to hyperspace, carrying the last free humans away from the galaxy that had rejected them. Behind them, 800 alien species went back to their lives, sure that they had solved their human problem forever. They had no idea what humans could become when they had nothing left to lose. As the ship flew through the darkness between stars, Kang Wu made a promise to himself. The galaxy had turned its back on humanity, but humanity would not break. They would not fade away quietly. Instead, they would become something the aliens never expected, something stronger, something better, something that would make the galaxy regret this day for a very long time. The Soul's Pride carried that promise home to Earth, where 12 billion humans waited to learn that they were now truly alone in the vast, cold universe. But they would not stay alone forever. The galaxy had made its choice. Now humanity would make theirs.